Well, hello there. My name is Void Ghost, and today I'm gonna ask you and answer myself a question. What is the question? Well, why are bad games made? What games? Well, video games, of course, and the usual process, or maybe you do. Um, there's a new game, and then there's game number two in the series, and then somewhere along the line, maybe it's a third game, maybe it's a fourth. It just goes downhill. I mean, the game from great becomes bad, and why? You got a good thing and you can't just keep up the good work. What's the problem? Well, today I'm gonna answer that. I'm gonna try to make it as quick as I can, make the video a bit shorter than before. But if you want to know about corporations, because I'm gonna mention that, I already made a video. It's a bit long, I know, but let's get right to it. So first of all, you got two entities we're gonna mention here. One is a computer studio. These are the guys who actually make the game. Okay, they work the code. They put all of the code together, the graphics, the underlying mechanics, uh, the audio, everything, right? And then you have a corporation that owns such studios. And what it wants? Well, it wants money. It makes money. And when it makes money, it doesn't really look at its assets as something precious, like an artist looks at his paintings, for example, right? This is something they will remember me for. No, no, no. They just want to earn some money, as much as they can. Now, computer studio, it can work on its own, right? So it can be its own little company. And if that's the case, and usually that's how it begins. So this small studio starts to develop something, and it makes its first game. Now, it can actually put in some effort in it and make a good game. But how does that studio actually look? Well, it can be one person or a few people, or it can be a bit bigger. It's not going to go probably above 30 people at the start, but let's look at that possibility. So let's take a big studio. A big studio, when it begins solo and it makes its first game, that is 30 people. Now, who exactly do you get in that personnel? Well, at first, you could kind of get a lot of enthusiasts, people who have a lot of time on their hands, and they are willing to sacrifice a lot of that time to make a product that they're going to get, well, incredibly rich of if it works out, right? So these people probably don't have families yet. Students, those are the people who you want in this team, because they're going to be working for free until it pays off. Of course, that isn't the only one option. You could also hire people. So let's say you do that, and you get some personnel. Who do you want? Well, here's the thing about IT specialists, that is the programmers, right? You can be someone who had an education in this or educated themselves in everything, really, and you can do everything, okay? You can do graphics, you can do change something in the core mechanics, you can put stuff together, etc. But that also means you are qualified for a good job, really, right? You can go out there and get a job that pays well. And here's a project that may not give you anything. So coming to it and working for free, it is an option. And some people will take a chance like that because it might pay off, and it may pay off well because all the profits from the game will partially go to you. You're not just going to be hired. But let's say you are hired, then you will probably demand a specific amount of money. And this small uh, infant infant studio, it doesn't have money. It doesn't have any money, or it has very little money, and that means they won't want someone with your uh, skills. They want someone who's cheap. And who is cheap? Well, someone who has very little skills. They don't really know that much about programming as a whole, but they can focus on something and get better and better as they go. And maybe they had experience in a very narrow area, right? And well, maybe they didn't. Anyway, this kind of personnel can fill the gap. They can make certain things happen if they have someone above them that's going to instruct them. Okay, do this, do that. Okay, this way. And if they run into problems, not a problem because they have better, more knowledgeable people just beside them, and they will be correcting any errors. They will be advising them, right? Okay, so the percentage here, let's say it's 10 people of those 30 that will be the A grade specialists, and 20 that will be, well, suited for the job, sure, but they're not going to be that good. And on their own, they wouldn't be able to make this game happen. Not this one, not the product we're going to see here. So the studio makes its first game, and what do you know? It's actually good, and people buy it. But the problem, which it usually will have, is advertising. So nobody knows about the game. And because of that, a lot of people that would buy it won't buy it because they won't know it's out there. Okay? They can completely miss it. And a lot of the money that's in the budget for a game, a AAA game, for example, it's going to go to advertising. So here, they don't have the money, they don't advertise, they may rely on other stuff. Like, for example, maybe there's a world that people would want to see a game made in, or more games made in, and the owners of the rights to that world don't object. And they say, okay, you know what? If your game makes it big, or just makes it, you give us 5%, okay? And that's it. You don't have to pay us anything in advance. Of course, if they make a bad product, it can kind of affect this. So it depends on the specific situation. But in this case, our example studio made a great game, or at least a very good game. So then they make the game number 2. This is a direct successor of the first game. Now, what does this mean? They take the code from the first game and they tweak it. They add to that. They change stuff. Basically, they already have the code. This is very important. If you work with the code you already have and you already know because you did it, you made that happen, okay? You know it by heart. Then it is much easier to do anything with that, even if you have to add completely new stuff. So the chances are that if they made a very good game the first time, or at least a good game the first time, then the second game is going to be much better. Now, this is the moment where the big guys, the companies that have multiple studios working for them at any given time, they will take interest in our little fella. That is the little studio. And what are they going to do? Well, they're going to assess the situation, and quite often they're going to buy the studio. How does that happen? They come to the studio, find the people in charge and say, look, this is the amount of money we're going to give you, and you're going to work for us, which of course means that all the code they develop to this point is going to be that big company's code, and all the personnel is going to be employed by the company. Now, some studios might be a little paranoid, and if that happens, well, they may make say contract that prevents the company just firing people from the studio just like that. We employed you last week, but this week, you know what, we decided that we're going to fire half of you. Why would that happen? Just in a moment. But now let's assume that they did have a contract like that and they feel moderately secure. Now they go and work for the big company. Now, what are the real company's plans, right? Why did it buy the studio? Now, you may say, well, okay, it has another asset. It has another studio. This studio has a good game. They can just say, look, make another part. That is a possibility, sure. But if you look closely at the other studios that are working for that company, then quite often you might see this situation. They have, let's say, 5 studios making very similar games. And these games are mediocre games. They're not good. You can finish them very quickly. There's not a lot of replayability in them. They are just not good. They're not very bad. They're just meh, This studio, it made a game that is great and then is fantastic, the second part, right? And you can spend hours, days, weeks, months, hell, even years playing that one game. Which means that the other studios of this big company are doing products or making products that will not sell, because now this studio, our example studio, made something that surpasses that in such a manner that the sales will drop on all those other games. So by acquiring that studio, they stop them from making that game. Now you may think, okay, well, is it really worth it? Such an investment? Well, if that's the only motivation and this would be, say, one-time thing, then you could think about would they do it or not. But if you look at the amount of studios working for the big guys that are ending their lifetime all the time, you will see a pattern here. And sometimes just look at one specific studio, okay? From the moment it is acquired by some big company, and then just count the years. Well, it's going to take a few years for you to see it, but maybe 2 years, maybe 3. Eventually, it's probably going to get disbanded. And what about the game? Well, you see, a good game requires a lot of effort to make another game like that. Some aspects of the game, for example, let's say you have a first-person shooter, right? And you got everything that's disruptible around you. Okay, so the character shoots, I don't know, some crates, they fall apart. Shoots a wall, it chips, and then it shoots the wall again and again, and eventually punches a hole for that. Whoa. Okay, and imagine big maps made like that. It's effort. And what if you have, as I said, 5 games that don't have that? Immediately, they will feel like, well, everybody will feel that they are simply worse. So now you take that game and you put it on the shelf and you forget about it. And if the players, that played the previous parts want something, done, why not another part? We want another part. Okay, you say, we thought about that. And, well, first of all, you don't allow that studio to work on their game. No, you give them something other to do, maybe similar, and tweak the situation that they will fail. And if they fail to do their job, now you can fire them at will. But how do you do it? How do you make them fail? Well, for example, you say, ooh, we think this amount of time is enough. And believe me, in IT, no amount of time is enough. You can always kind of tweak the code. You can always double check it, fish out the bugs, and etc. And if you, let's say, well, shorten the amount of time these guys will get, then most likely they're going to have to hurry, and it's not going to be good, or it's going to be a buggy mess. Whatever the case, they won't have enough time, and you will use that to basically destroy them. And other options, well, you put them on a new project. You say, ooh, I think this is going to be great. You can even add some personnel to them, which isn't going to make things happen faster, not necessarily, at least. Let me give you one real life example. Maybe you heard about the game Mercenaries, and then there was Mercenaries 2. These games were fantastic. I mean, they were above everything. Pretty much everything in the world could have been destroyed. The amount of equipment was not going into detail. I got to tell you that the studio that made them was called Pandemic, and it was bought by EA Games. And when EA Games bought them, well, they put them on another game, Saboteur. And, well, the game was pretty good, I think, but I mean, I finished it. It was pretty good, but it had these quirks. It wasn't polished. That's what I would say about it. And apparently, it didn't do that well in sales. And what do you know? Pandemic got dispersed. Okay, some people fired, some moved somewhere else to other studios, right? And what about the games? Is there a Mercenaries free? Well, no, but then when players started to kind of say, well, where's the game? Come on, you owe us the game. Um, EA kind of put someone on the project, and there was a project for a while, but then it got scrapped. And years passed, and now nobody calls Where's Mercenaries free anymore. Okay? And you can see that happen from time to time. Of course, that is costly because they have good code and good basis to make another game. So this would only work if you kind of have other projects that are very similar and you don't want to sync them, and you buy that studio specifically to protect them. That's the case. So, what else can you do with that studio generally? Well, you don't have to totally destroy it. You can kind of pressure it. It all depends on what contract did you sign exactly. Because in our example, we said there were 10 A grade specialists and 20 B grade specialists, right? Now, which ones would you like to keep? Well, the B grade specialists are replaceable and they probably require much less money. So the A grade, these guys, they know they have the skills, and it's questionable if they would actually just quit if the situation kind of demanded that they destroy their reputation, which I will mention in a moment, uh, and leave the studio. But they might do that. Okay, so they are kind of risky and they're more pricey. So, as a big company, you might think that if you just remove a few and a few and a few more and replace them with, not so skilled personnel, then maybe you're going to save some money. And what's the big deal? It's just tweaking the code. And yeah, that is kind of it. If this code is already present and you have people that kind of were instructed to do stuff with it, change it in ways, and they don't understand everything, the depth of it. But it's okay. Their skills are enough to make another game happen. But the problem is if you have to introduce a new engine, right? So that's the base mechanic of the game. Ooh, it's not about just acquiring the engine because a big company like that is going to get new engines once in a while. That's how it is. But you might see a studio that's not willing to change that, right? And you might think, why? Get a new engine. It's going to be a much better game. Yeah, but that means you have to build from scratch. You have to build something similar on like a new foundation. Okay, you can copy some of the code sometimes, but not all of it. You need to work around the quirks and find what's the new engine good at and what's it not so good at, and that is something that requires skill, a certain level of skill. You cannot bypass that. And if there's almost no A grade personnel in that studio, then they might not be able to do it anymore. Okay. And then there's another factor. You see, when you work with code, we're talking about thousands of lines of code, for example. You get a lot of people dispersed and working on different things at the same time. Then other people put it together. So they are this one unit, this one group of individuals that know each other, know what they need to do, and they make things happen. But now, if you start exchanging personnel, because I don't know, maybe some of them just wanted too much money, for example, yeah, right? Or you're telling them to work so fast that they have no room for personal life anymore. And some just, you have to leave because they can't take it. And you put in new people. These new people might not know everything, right? So maybe they're gonna connect with the rest, and maybe they won't. And all this means that at some point you may not be able to rework the code that you already have, which is a huge problem. Now, of course, unless you just want to make copy paste next part of the game, but it's going to be tweaked just a little and you're going to call it a new part, and right, but it's going to be on the same engine all the time. Then you got to perhaps an easy way ahead of you, but just until people start demanding some changes, some big ones. So anyway, what are the other options that the big company could, what it can do with such a studio? Well, does it have to try to disband it or shuffle the personnel? Well, if it does that, it kind of prevents it from leaving the company. Now, if the situation is going to be worse for it, for the personnel as the whole, if they all are in the same place, work as the same group they did before, someone in charge of that group might say, look, guys, this isn't working out. Let's bail. We're going to make a new game. We're prepared. And can they? Well, the thing is, yeah. Because you see, as an IT specialist, if you got code, you're not going to lose that code. Okay? It's just not going to go away. You're going to have copies. You're going to have copies on every level of development, unless you're sloppy or something. So you made something happen and you probably have 10 different versions, slightly different from each other, or maybe you even branched out at some point and made some changes and some other changes, but they were mutually exclusive. So you got the code and you got it here. Of course, you don't remember everything, but you know how it was done. And you see, in code or in coding, you got certain ways of doing things, and those are universal. So it's pretty much impossible to block these people working on the game from having a copy of that code with them, on different stages of development. And if some big company would actually try that, that would be rather disastrous, because it would make everything go on longer and longer. Because your top grade personnel, they have a tendency to, at home, when they're feeling relaxed, they have some coffee, and a good time. Then they think about the code and they want to look at it again. And in reality, you wouldn't really need to bring them together or into some specific place. They could work from home. The reality is that depends. Some might want them to clock in the hours, and other companies or supervisors could say, you know what, actually, if you just do this job in this amount of time, whatever, stay at home, just send us what you got. But what does the big company use these studios if it just slightly changes them, or almost doesn't, and it doesn't want to sink them like a ship? Well, of course, they can make their product under the new banner. And if this product is kind of unique, and then this is a good idea. But then, yeah, we get to this third, maybe fourth part. Let's assume this is how it went. The studio on its own made 2 games. Okay, number 1, number 2. Direct line of games. Now, under the new leadership, they made a 3rd game. And this game was even better than the 2nd one. Great. And now they make the 4th game, and the game, well, it sucks. And maybe you prepaid for it, and now you got this steaming turd, and you don't know what the hell has happened. What happened? And you're going to have a lot of people, like, for example, Angry Joe makes these wonderful reviews of games, and he's going to get very angry, of course. What happened? Why did you do this? Why didn't you find the bugs? Well, let me tell you why. First of all, the company, as already mentioned, wants money. That's it. That's it. So, when the end of the year comes and it needs more money, and why does it need more money? As I said, I made a video about that. But in general, it needs to make a show of profits. how much it earned. And this is the end of the year, and it can sell this game, but the game isn't finished. So they come to this studio and say, look, guys, you need to like ship it, okay? You put the code on the server and just, we're going to sell it. But wait, the game isn't finished. We were supposed to like have another 6 months. Well, does it kind of work? Well, yeah, but it's a buggy mess. We didn't fish out the bugs. We didn't, polish some stuff, and it's probably going to crash after 2 hours of working. Okay, we're going to ship it. Now, you have to understand this thing. The people in charge in that big company, they don't know anything about coding. And not just that, they don't play games, okay? The only game they play is the business game. So for them, this is like some alien stuff that they happen to be doing it within. They're producing this. Yes, it gives them money. That's it. They don't understand this. They don't really understand what's good. And even if they do, or kind of, then they don't really want you to have a good time. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to buy their product. If it's a cheap product and you're going to be kind of unhappy, but you're still going to buy it, that's good for them. They don't care. So, a conclusion to that talk would be the company guy saying, oh, okay, look, you can make patches, right? We need those sales now, buddy, now. So just ship it as it is. You got like, 2 weeks? Polish it, make it, glue it together, whatever you do with the code. And stick a price tag and make some patches. The next few months you're going to patch. That's what you're going to do. But we need that money now. Option number 2. You prepaid for the game. That's right. You gave them your money. And, well, they have the money. Now they can develop the game, right? Well, the big company thinks like this. They already have your money right here. Okay? Now they can spend, or their studio can spend a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years in developing the game. Yeah. Well, the time it spends developing this game that you already bought, it doesn't develop other stuff, right? So, of course, they have risk guys. Those are the guys who take measurements and think about what the odds are of gaining money and losing money. And they will come to a certain conclusion. You see, if this game is a complete failure, I mean, it doesn't work, okay? Then you're going to demand your money back or something like that. And yeah, you're going to have to pay back. So it's going to be like a 0% loan for them, which is kind of good, but they don't want that. Okay, they want something that's going to function, but they don't want their studio to spend too much time. And normally the studio would come and say, look, we need like a year more, and then we're going to have a good game. But now it almost doesn't work. It's going to be a complete failure. People will not buy it. But if they already bought it, oh, that's a different story. If they conclude that 50%, for example, people that would buy the game already bought it, well, that's a good number for them. If only 5%, that's not a good number. That means you can develop the game still, and it's going to be profitable, right? So what else? What else can they do, and why? We're talking about bad games, or why games are bad, right? What does that mean? Well, it can be a buggy mess, as I already mentioned. And if it's a buggy mess, well, is that bad for the studio? Well, there is one good thing about it for the studio, you see, or well, for the studio, for the company, or actually for the company more than the studio. The studio is gonna have to hang its head in shame and say, "Oh, we're sorry, we didn't have the time." And but it's possible that the company told them to leave the bugs in. Now, why would it do that? Well, because if you have a game that's buggy and the pirates pirate the game, they will pirate it with the bugs, right? And then the patches, when they come out, the first patch, the second patch, the whole line of patches, they would have to patch, or sorry, crack the game over and over and over with each patch. Because usually when a crack comes out, it tweaks some files, right? That's how it works. And you just kind of find out which files were tweaked by the pirates, and then you change those files. And now they have to do their job again. And usually, after some time, maybe one patch, maybe two patches, they're going to give up. And they're going to wait at least for the last patch you will make. That's the moment when they're going to crack the game anyway. But until then, you're pretty safe. So you see, leaving bugs in might not be the worst thing, not for the big company. Of course, the studio is gonna have a reputation of having their games very buggy on release, and some people just won't want to go through that, and they won't buy the game right away. So it's a mixed thing, right? It's a good thing and a bad thing for the company and for the studio alike. Now, there are two things that I would also like to mention. Those are two possibilities. You see, one is making a game that is online, always online, right? And this is potentially an infinite amount of money that you can make. But not all online games make it big, and not all online games stay, keep people interested in them for a long while. So sometimes they got this peak, and it's gonna go downhill from there. And this is an investment because you have to get those servers. Either you have them and you just put them at the disposal of this one studio and its game, or maybe you have to buy them, whatever the case, right? Some personnel has to be on point, generally looking for anything that goes wrong in the game, right? And all those things are costs. So not always is this a good idea to make your game an online thing, but this potentially can make you an infinite amount of money. Years can go by and you just make more money on it. So yeah, this means that if you have a studio that would kind of make an online game and you buy out that studio, but this is not something that quite often happens, you see. When a studio makes a game, and this is an online game, and it's a successful game, it has its profits in its hands, and it's its own ruler, right? So yeah, that's not something that that's not a situation where a big company can easily step in. But sometimes it can offer, of course, a big price for what they have and take possession of that. Now, the other option, mods. That's modifications of the game, right? You have a game, and it's good, but after a while you get bored. But then someone says, "Hey, I made a mod," and maybe there's a huge amount of people making huge amounts of mods. And you take those mods, you install them as a player, and suddenly the game that, well, maybe you would spend a month with it. Now it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, and you're still going, right? Because the content is still appearing. And does that company in charge of the studio that made the game, is it happy or is it sad about that? Well, it's again a mixed thing. You see, on one side, this means that a very old game can be resold for a not that small of a price, because after a long while, normally you would sell a game for what, $1, $3, something like that, right? But in this case, you from 60 you can go say to 10 and maintain that price, and people will buy it 10 years after release sometimes, and the mods will be the defining factor there. Because of them, the replayability will be enormous. However, the bad thing for the company is that this means that the next product in line will unfortunately, well, not be required by the fans, by the people playing, or it will be, but in 10 years, right? Not in two. So on one side, it can sell the same product over and over, but on the other, it can't rely on making a new product and selling it to happy fans, right? Now, so I think that kind of covers it. And yeah, you can see, you could say it's greed, but it's not exactly that. It's just that your happiness as a player is meaningless to the big companies in charge. And they, of course, that's the second thing, do not understand gaming. They don't understand coding. They just don't really care. For them, it's a product. They could be selling bricks for all you care, for all they care. So, are you happy? Are you playing a good game or a mediocre game? They don't care about that. They just want you to buy their game. If you prepay, that's the thing that can change a lot. Not in a good way, unfortunately. And well, yeah, I think I got it all covered here. So the usual, if you liked it, like it. Thanks for watching. Bye.